From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
The race for governor has been getting the lion's share of attention, but there are 5 candidates running for lieutenant governor: John Lugo, Sabina Matos, Cynthia Mendez, Paul Pence, and Deb Ruggiero. With the exit of Governor Gina Raimondo catapulting Dan Mckee into the governor's office, the significance of the position is firmly on the voters' radars. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside 12 News politics editor Ted Nesi. Joining us in studio is candidate for lieutenant governor, State Representative Deb Ruggiero. It's good to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Why do you want to be lieutenant governor?
That is the question.
It is.
That is an office that has so much untapped potential, and with the right leadership, we can really make a difference. So, as you probably know, my 4 E's, economy, education, environment, and our elders, have been the cornerstone of my 14-year legislative career. So I want to take the work we've done with renewable energy and act on climate, continue that on a larger platform, but more importantly, really focus on our older Rhode Island citizens. For far too long, we really haven't paid attention to things like home health care. People want to age in place, and nationally, the average is about 45% of Medicaid spending on home health care. Rhode Island right now is spending 22%. So we have some work to do there. You may not need home health care, but your parents will. You may not need senior services, but your grandparents will. So that is an office where I see there's a lot of potential, especially with the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council, which is under the purview of the Lieutenant Governor. And because I've been in the legislature for the past 14 years, framed the state budget on House Finance for 8 years, I kind of know where the pieces are, and we just need to have a champion. Things don't really get done unless there's somebody who's really advocating, and so I want to be an active, accessible lieutenant governor.
And I'm sure we'll touch on some of the other E's throughout this incumbent Democrat as lieutenant governor. Why is Sabina Matos wrong for the job?
She's a wonderful woman. We just have a fundamentally different view of what the office of lieutenant governor should be.
Which is what?
And I'm not really running against anyone. I'm running for the office to make it a platform where we can take stakeholders and, as I said, not only work with the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council, but if you look at the statute, also with the lieutenant governor, it's EMA. And my work with cybersecurity, with Do It, and the House Committee on Innovation, Internet Technology is another good reason for that area. And the Small Business Advisory Council. You know, I am a small business owner, right? I've chaired the Small Business Committee, and it's just an office with so much potential. And I just believe that at this hour of my life, I'm excited to continue the policy work on a different platform.
I don't think, though, I heard anything. You said you have a difference of opinion with Lieutenant Governor Matos. I didn't hear anything there, though, I think she would disagree with about.
My experience in and of itself is something that really could matter in the event, framing a lot of these policies.
Did you talk to Governor Mckee about running for Lieutenant Governor, and what did he say?
I did not talk to Governor Mckee about this.
Are you going to support him for governor? Have you decided who you're supporting for governor?
I am not going to be taking sides on anything. Here's my philosophy. Because of my experience, I truly believe that whoever the people of Rhode Island elect as governor, I can work with.
But you will be going into the voting booth, and you'll be choosing someone yourself
right.
for governor. So when you bring up the word philosophy, do you think there's anyone who lines up with your philosophy? I mean, it should be noted, you just sponsored a bill that passed the House for Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea.
Our cybersecurity work, exactly.
So is there anybody, who are you voting for, I guess is the question.
That's a great question. For me, the jury's still out. You know, for a lot of people, I think we have to see, more. And I certainly will make a decision, obviously, like everyone, before I go into the voting booth. But right now, I believe that they're all very, very strong candidates, and we'll see, where the journey takes us. I think a lot of people are not deciding just yet.
Everyone always says the most important job of a lieutenant governor is to be ready to become governor, and we certainly saw that in the last year. Looking back, I'm wondering, what lessons did you take away from last year's transition between Raimondo and Mckee? First time that's happened in a long, long time. And what would you do differently if it happened to you as LG?
Right, yeah, that's the proverbial question, in a heartbeat, are you ready? Absolutely, and part of it is because of the experience I've had in the legislature, working with the House, with the Senate, with the governor's office. Changes like that are difficult. It's not the office I'm running for lieutenant governor, but absolutely I would be ready in the event that something like that happened. Transitions are not easy, but it's all about the people. You know, I believe leadership is, you know, you get outside your comfort zone. You find that line and you go with courage, with boldness and collaboration. You work with a lot of different people and you ask, how can we make this better? What can we do to change this and make the state a better place for policy and for our people?
Go ahead. Historically, this, you know, there have been a lot of debate over whether this office even is worth having and paying the $1 million budget a year. Bob Healy, the late Bob Healy, of course, campaigned on getting rid of it. You obviously feel differently because you're running to hold the job. Who would be your model of a successful Rhode Island lieutenant governor? When you look at the people who have held this job, who do you think did a particularly good job with it and why?
What a great question. Several. I think Elizabeth Roberts did a great job with this, with her healthcare platform. The lieutenant governor used to preside over the Senate.
Right.
So all of a sudden, Richard Leach is the lieutenant governor, and in 4 years, he did some tremendous work. He created the long-term care coordinating council that we have today, as well as the Small Business Advisory Council and the EMA, all part of the purview of the lieutenant governor. So with the experience I've had over the years, I thought, wow, that's a great platform to continue a lot of the work. And when you think about it, I mean, that was pretty innovative for then Lieutenant Governor Richard Leach, and that was what, 37 years ago, 1985?
It was a while ago, yeah.
I mean, it was before all our time, but we're talking about it today. So to me, that resonates when work you've done is still existing today.
The power of the Lieutenant Governor's office was greatly diminished when they did away with that position presiding over the Senate.
Yes.
Should it go back to that?
I think it's fine. I love it as a separate office.
Okay.
I really do. I think it's important that it's a separate office, and again, with the right leadership, it can do so much opportunity, I think, for the people of Rhode Island. So I think it's, unless the people decide that it should be something different.
Should Rhode Island have the lieutenant governor and governor on a joint ticket like they do in Massachusetts, or should it remain split?
Another good question. You know,
that's the only kind we ask on Newsmakers.
Touche, Ted. It is not a joint ticket in our state, right? Our statutes don't say you run together. Our campaign finance laws say you don't run together, so that'll be an interesting quagmire as time goes on. And also the founders of the state constitution said it should be a separate office. And the people of Rhode Island had an opportunity to make it a joint ticket, I think about 35 years ago, and they chose not to. If it should be something that the people vote on, that's one thing, but I see the office really important as a separate independent office for a couple of reasons, okay? One, it could be oversight, you know, it could be Auditor General, and it could be, as I'd like to see it, a policy pulpit, so that we can actually do work specifically with helping our older Rhode Islanders. You know, we have an age wave in this state. 1 out of 4 Rhode Islanders will be 65 plus in the next several years. And we just need to build systems to help address that whole issue of how we age in place.
I want to ask you about broadband. You had a very public back and forth recently with Cox Communications after you dismissed a big press conference announcing an investment they were making as a PR stunt along with some other reps. Cox's argument, their pushback seems to boil down to the idea that they think you're pushing for government-owned broadband infrastructure that they argue would be sort of a boondoggle for taxpayers. You know, this can be hard for people to understand. Do you want broadband to be sort of like a public utility, the way we get water and sewer from our city and town? What is it that you think should be done differently in how we get our broadband?
Two things to unpack with what you said. Should broadband be a public utility is one thing, because much like if you buy a house or you relocate your business, you wouldn't do that without electricity, right, or water. We no longer go online, we live online. So for many people, how we do business, how we do telehealth, how we do our education, broadband, which is high-speed internet, has become instrumental. This first part, I think what you were asking about, is it was very public in terms of what they, I do not believe that government should be in the broadband industry. That was not my point. My point was, for the past 8 years, Rhode Island has not had any governance, any oversight of broadband. We're one of 2 states, us and Mississippi, right, in the entire nation without any governance. So we've lost out on hundreds of millions of federal dollars over the past 8 years. No conversations about what is the future of the technology. What are the best practices from other states? That's what I want to see, a broadband advisory council, and part of that would have municipalities at the table to ask the questions. You know, can a municipality put paper to pencil and actually decide, like Block Island did, that floating an $8 million revenue bond, and they created fiber to the premises, and they could do that. The bond goes for 20 years, and it's not a lot of money for taxpayers and for residents, but they have up and down, symmetrical, if you will, broadband speeds that are unprecedented.
I want to tick off some issues very briefly here. Rapid fire section. I'm looking for 1 or 2 word answers.
Okay.
Do you support or oppose legalized recreational marijuana?
I support.
Are you pro-life or pro-choice?
I am pro-choice.
Do you support raising the income tax on the wealthiest Rhode Islanders?
We can't be raising any taxes right now. We need to invest $1.1 billion, but I think all of our tax policy should be looked at, including the real estate tax, which I championed several years ago.
So right now, no.
The estate tax. Yeah, I don't believe we should do any tax policy.
And if you do not win the primary, will you endorse your opponent in the general election?
I haven't thought about what I'm doing right now. I've got 5.5 months to run hard, to have fun, to meet people, to talk about my message, and one day at a time.
Briefly, back to the cannabis question, there are 2 different proposals for legalized recreational marijuana. One calls for a cannabis control commission to regulate the industry here in Rhode Island. The other would put the responsibility on the administration with the Department of Business Regulation. Which one do you like?
I haven't weighed in yet. I want to do more reading and kind of think about that. Both are 2 different ways of governance. We definitely need some governance over it. Both have the negatives and the positives, and I believe there will be something that we vote on this year. The time is now. A lot of people are asking.
One of the big stories in recent weeks has been the FBI joining the investigation into the controversial ILO Group contract, which came out of the Mckee administration. And as we know, Lieutenant Governor Matos has been a supporter of Governor Mckee. He picked her. And so she was asked about the ILO contract earlier this week on 12 News at 4. Here's some of what she had to say.
This investigation could conclude that nothing wrong happened, and in the meantime, when we continue to make comments, we are just trying to decide for ourselves what the final result is. I'd rather wait, let the investigation continue, let the FBI do its work, and rather wait and hear what is the result of the investigation.
Do you agree?
Well, it's worrisome that the FBI and the U.S. Attorney, are investigating the Mckee Matos administration. But at the end of the day, they'll do their diligence. I would say that what Rhode Island people really want is open, transparent government, and we all deserve that. If there are state contracts, they need to be vetted. There needs to be an RFP, a request for proposal, and we just need to make sure we're fair and accurate and transparent in how we do business.
All right, we have to go to a break here, but I have to ask you about one thing. It was a big story this week, the new license plate design.
Oh, man.
Okay, well, there's your reaction.
Let me just finish.
Yeah.
You know that wonderful Who song?
Which
the old plate, same
Who are you?
as the other one. The old plate, the new plate, same as the old plate. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Okay.
Meet the new plate,
so
same
there
as
it
the
is
old
on the
place.
screen. This is the new license plate.
I
It
have
sounds
to-
like you don't like it.
Well, I have to, obviously have no choice. I have to have it on my car. But
Well, legally, yes, that is
Yes,
accurate.
that's
Here are the
right.
other choices people had that are on the screen.
I loved the bridge with the sunset.
Oh, very
That was just
Jamestown.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, just very, South County, beachy, kind of cool lifestyle. So
Whereas this one to you,
is
what?
5 waves in Rhode Island. Maybe it's
You took a very analytical and literal definition of the license plate. All right, State Representative Deb Ruggiero, candidate for Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate this.
All right, thanks for coming in. When we come back, a political roundtable with 12 News political analyst Joe Fleming. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi, and we're joined by 12 News political analyst Joe Fleming. Good to have you back, Joe.
Always a pleasure.
Why don't we start with the lieutenant governor's race,
Yep.
because we had Deb Ruggiero on the first half, and we'll bring up the candidates here running, and we have both Democrats and Republicans on the screen. John Lugo, Sabina Matos, Cynthia Mendez, Paul Pence, and Deb Ruggiero. Look, Joe, the lieutenant governor's race flies under the radar, right almost up until Election Day. So it might be a tough question, but How would you assess this race right now?
Well, right now I would assess it that you got 5 candidates. None of them have great statewide name recognition, which means it's probably a wide open race at this point. Even though we have an incumbent lieutenant governor, I don't think she's a household name in the state of Rhode Island.
In Sabina Matos.
And the other candidates basically are not household names either. Senator Mendes or Deb Ruggiero on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
They're not names that people identify with at this point. So all these candidates and the Republican candidates have to get out there and get some name recognition and put some meat on the bones.
Right.
Otherwise, no one's going to have any idea, and they may get overshadowed because of the congressional race and the governor's primary. So it's going to be very difficult for these 5 people.
Yeah, I wonder to both of you, and start with you, Ted, as he mentioned, probably Sabina Matos has the most name recognition. That's because she's the incumbent. Mm-hmm. You see her at, the Governor Mckee has brought her to the weekly or semi-weekly news briefings that he holds. But then again, the office can also weigh you down if there are bad headlines or Governor Mckee makes a decision that's not popular. Does being the incumbent help or hurt?
Yeah, well, I think right now, people can see it both ways. Running as the incumbent for an office that, as Joe says, never gets a lot of attention until the very, very end of the primary season could give you an advantage. But on the other hand, because she's an incumbent so tied to the incumbent governor, that means she's also going to take on, as we saw there, what did Deb Ruggiero say? The Mckee-Matos administration gave out the ILO contract.
Right.
We've, of course, never seen a stitch of evidence Sabina Matos was involved in these discussions. Yeah. But on the other hand, just as Kamala Harris gets, part of everything that Joe Biden does, you have a similar thing in this dynamic. So are the positives of incumbency going to outweigh some of the negatives of being part of the administration? And also, will Sabina Matos get offsetting advantages? Like Dan Mckee has his regional base. He has a much higher level, I think, of notoriety from incumbency than maybe she does. It's an interesting thing. We haven't seen it. So we got to kind of see how that plays out.
In a race like this, a couple of things may help whoever's going to be the front runner. Getting union endorsement and getting the Democratic Party endorsement. There's no guarantee because Lieutenant Governor Matos is the incumbent that she's going to get the endorsement. Deb Ruggiero's already been endorsed by Joe Fleming, the Speaker of the House.
Do you think that means she'll get the party endorsement?
I don't think it necessarily means she's going to, but I think it gives her an advantage to the fact that simply the representatives control the district committees. So in turn, the state committee man, state committee woman, the state rep may have appointed them. She's a state rep. She may have an inside track to get some of these votes.
All right, let's talk about the race in the 2nd Congressional District now. We're going to bring up the Democrats first, and there's a lot of them on there. Omar Ba, Joy Fox, Seth Magaziner, Sarah Morgenthau, Cameron Moquin, Michael Neary, and David Siegel. And Ted, we actually heard from most of the candidates about fundraising, which is really what it comes down to in many ways. Remind people where that stands.
Yeah, and let's leave this up, Alex, for a second so people can watch what we're talking about. So we got, now nobody's filed an official campaign finance report yet. That's not due till later in the month, so we're going on them telling the truth in their press releases. But what we've heard so far, Seth Magaziner, we figured he was the financial leader, but he put a big number out. Says he's raised $1.4 million so far for this race, a lot of money. In second place, Sarah Morgenthau, brand new to Rhode Island politics. She raised about $420,000, says she'll have $500,000 with her own money put in. Then David Siegel, progressive former state rep, ran for Congress in the other district in 2010. He says he raised about $250,000. And then Joy Fox, who you see up there, former Langevin and Gene Raimondo staffer, she raised about $175,000. I'd say all those numbers are ones that make those for people to keep an eye on as these keep going. Obviously, you'd rather have more money than the others, so that's a good thing for Seth Magaziner. But no reason to think that the other 3 who've put out numbers are about to abandon ship when they have numbers that you could build off of. So I think it shows it's going to be a competitive race.
And expensive. I mean, because you have to not only think about the primary, but how are you going to save your money for the general?
That's correct. And some of this money may not be able to be used in the primary because some of it may be going to the general election. And Congress is done that way. So some of Seth Magaziner's $1.4 million may be set for the general election. We don't know that. We'll know
I actually
that later
did check on that because you and I were talking about it early in the week. Most of the money in all their cases, they tell me, are going to be mostly primary money. So a lot of this is going to be available to these folks. Again, if they're being, they have to be truly candid with the FEC. They can just tell me a bit of spin sometimes.
Again, some of these candidates need this money because, again, just like Lieutenant Governor, they're not household names in the state of Rhode Island. No one right now is looking at the congressional race as far as the general public. My guess is if you poll this race, more than 50% of the people would say they have no idea.
Yeah.
Because they don't know the candidates. And it's going to take money. It's going to take a lot of money for them to get known to the voters in the 2nd Congressional District.
Well, there is I would argue, a household name running in the Republican side, and we can bring up the 3 candidates for Republican running to again replace Jim Langevin for Congress. We have Jessica De La Cruz, Alan Fung, the former mayor of Cranston, he ran twice for governor, and Bob Lancia, former state rep. We should talk money first here, Ted. I would think that Alan Fung is the heavy hitter.
Yeah, it's similar to Magaziner's position in the Democratic primary. Fung says he raised about just over $500,000, plus put in some of his own money beyond that. Jessica De La Cruz says she raised about $65,000, put in, I think, a $20,000 loan on top of that. Haven't seen a release yet from Bob Lancia. So Alan Fung clearly is going to have a big financial advantage in that primary. But as Joe always likes to point out, Republican primaries are now very different than Democratic ones, which is one of the questions here.
There's no question, Ted. You're going to see in this Republican primary, at the top side, I would think 20,000 people voting in that primary. So I would assume Jessica De La Cruz is very conservative, a lot more conservative than Alan Fung. She's going to probably work for those Trump voters, the conservative voters, and use her money to target those voters. Alan Fung, on the other hand, has $500,000. He could do more of a wide range campaign. Again, the big thing with Alan Fung is doing very well in Cranston and Warwick. She may win those small areas, but there's not a lot of voters. Alan has to turn out the vote in Cranston. The question is, Bob Lancia, he's also from Cranston. Is he going to take votes from Alan Fung, which could bring his numbers down?
I believe we've seen in one of Alan Fung's gubernatorial primaries, if you took Cranston out of the total, he actually came in second, but he did so well in Cranston that he won the primary. So does that
last
strength
time I checked,
continue?
Cranston is in the 2nd Congressional
Yes,
District,
one of the 3 big communities, yeah.
All right, I want to go back to the Democrats, specifically Sarah Morgenthau. She entered the race late last month, and she's been getting a lot of scrutiny and I suppose criticism about whether she truly ever lived in Rhode Island. And 12 News anchor Kim Kalunian asked her about that in our 4 p.m. newscast earlier this week. Take a listen.
But have you ever lived here year-round?
Kim, our home in North Kingstown is it's our constant. It's where we've been coming for almost 40 years. I have been paying property taxes in the 2nd Congressional District for 40 years.
Did you ever attend school here or live here year-round?
I did not attend school here. I have 3 children, and
have they attended school here?
No, they haven't attended school here, but part of the reason for that is because my husband and I have had different jobs. It's taken us around the world.
All right, so no question this will be an issue she's going to have to tackle, right, throughout the campaign. But how big an issue is it going to be?
Well, I think that remains to be seen, right? The voters get to decide. We have seen people move into states. People love to say, Hillary Clinton was not a New Yorker, and she ran in New York and won a Senate seat there in 2000. But she was Hillary Clinton, a first lady, and Sarah Morgenthau doesn't come with the name recognition that Hillary did in 2000. When you hear in that answer, I think the challenge, which is trying to clearly turn something that I'm sure has been important to the Morgenthau family, their summer home here, into perhaps a bigger connection than it has been in her life. And I think, clearly Morgenthau is still, and her team are still trying to figure out a good answer on that. She also, I would say, got a wave of bad press from the Providence Journal when she was quizzed about various things in the 2nd District. They did this to all the candidates, and the article indicated it seemed like she might have been Googling some of it. I mean, that's not helpful, but again, she's second in money, so money can overcome a lot. I don't know if it can overcome this.
Yeah, I think what she has to do is use that money really early, Ted, because she can get out there right now and build her image. Even though she's had some negatives and some problems like the interview with Kim, if she can get out there and try to build a positive image, that could help her. But again, she has to spend a lot of money early on. Otherwise, other people are going to define her image, and that's going to give her a major problem.
I mean, it's almost become a theme in the 2nd Congressional District. Now we're talking about someone living out of state, which is different. But I mean, Seth Magaziner, last time we had him on this program, he had not yet moved into the 2nd Congressional District. I believe Jessica De La Cruz lives out of the 2nd Congressional District.
They're both house hunting.
Right, they're both house hunting, and this is a tough market. Right. So, I mean,
we've seen it before, Tim. Bob Wagan was a state representative from the city of East Providence. He ran in Congressional District 2 and won in a Democratic primary, then won the general election. He eventually moved into the 2nd Congressional District, I believe, during the campaign. So I don't think the voters will give too much credence to that. As long as the people move into the district, they'll be happy with it.
And but you do see, it's interesting, Joy Fox, who had enough money, I'd say, to stay in the hunt, but is in fourth financially after this quarter. They are driving that message home. She said in her press release about money, the only candidate with roots in the 2nd Congressional District. You know, she grew up there, she worked for Langevin, and I think her team is hoping that even if she's never going to be tops in fundraising, they'd like to be, but probably won't be with how the others are doing, they can drive that message. I'm the hometown candidate. I'm from here. I have a connection to you with the voters. So we'll see if that is something that connects with people.
30 seconds left. Does the National Democratic Party, would they ever come in before a primary on something like this?
The National Party, no, but I am watching to see if Emily's List comes in for one of the women candidates. We saw that in Massachusetts in the 4th District primary to replace Joe Kennedy, and they spent a lot of money. That could have an impact.
All right, we got to go. Thank you, Joe Fleming, for joining us, and Ted Nesi. If you missed any of it, it's on WPRI.com. Don't forget to sign up for our podcast. I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.